All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the March 13th meeting of the Comprehensive Plan Task Force. My name is Al LaGros. I'm the chair of the task force, and I'd like to quickly introduce everybody in the room, starting with our consultants over here on my left.
Hi, I'm Madeline Tripp. I'm from Viewshed.
Judy Colby-George from Viewshed.
George Prince.
Beck Gilly.
Oh, you said you were.
King of the road there.
Kevin Johnson.
Okay. Peter Lieberworth.
Dave Brown.
Brian Hurst.
Bob Eaton.
Thank you. Mary Ann, thank you very much. We have a few people that were unable to make it tonight, and that's understandable. We've been going for well over 2 years now, so we're close. We're you know, as somebody said, the light's at the end of the tunnel, whether it's a train or whether it's something else, we don't know. But let me quickly summarize the last meeting. We focused on a couple of things. One was the plan itself and making sure that we had a draft copy that was put out on the website, and Viewshed came through and did that. The other thing that we focused on was what's going to happen between now and when this is supposed to come to a vote in May. And we decided we're going to have 3 separate meetings in the town, one in Cundies, one in Orson Bailey Island, one in West Harpswell, and we're going to advertise those. I want to talk a little bit about how we're going to do that and get some comments and feedback. And then on April 10th, we're going to have a public hearing at the school where hopefully we will get final inputs from the community and then make necessary tweaks to what we have and then bring it to a vote in May. I think it's May 11th, if I'm not mistaken, but they weren't firm on the May date, but I think the last thing I saw was May 11th. So that's kind of the sum and substance of what we discussed the last time, and I wanted to kind of embellish a few things tonight before turning it over to Judy. First of all, we have volunteers to lead the 3 information meetings. I'm going to do the Orson Bailey Island meeting. Matt is going to do the Cundies Harbor meeting, and George is going to do the meeting at Kellogg Church. We need people to show up at those meetings, number one, to make sure they take notes, but also to provide some support. We don't want this to be the Lone Ranger at every place, so we need people to agree to attend. You don't have to attend all of them, but at least one, and provide some support and input as required. The other thing I'd like to mention is that the Harpswell Business Association contacted Christie and asked if they could get sort of a summary of what's going on, and I volunteered to do that. It's going to be on the same day as Matt's leading the presentation at Cundies, and that's going to be at Cook's. I don't know what, I'm hoping it's at the bar, but I'm not sure. I think it's going to be in the dining room because Cook's at that time on a Thursday is not very busy, so they kind of crunch a few tables together, and so I'll be there at 6 o'clock to go over the comprehensive plan and to get feedback. And they're focused obviously on business and what the plan has to say about business in Harpswell and so on. Next item, and I don't have the agenda in front of me, so I'm kind of ripping here, if you will. Oh, thank you. I probably already busted the agenda.
No, you're doing pretty good.
Okay. So, but just a couple of things in advance of turning it over to Judy. We have an opportunity to hand out flyers And I think, you've seen them, I think, the flyers that have been prepared. And the question is, do we think we want to hand out flyers at the recycling center on Saturday? You know, I will say this, I handed out 125 flyers at the town meeting. And so I talked to Mark about it, and I'm saying, you know, I'm not sure how much more we're gonna gain by going to the recycling center this Saturday to hand out flyers. But if people wanna do that, and people wanna volunteer to do that, Saturday is the day, Friday's gonna be rainy. If you wanna do that, we can make it happen. If not, we'll focus on the information meetings moving forward, so.
Well, I can speak to that, because we did two for the affordable housing thing up here, and they were whizzing by. I actually moved the cones, so they had to come to us. And then Chuck made me move them back. So anyway, they weren't completely receptive.
Yeah, I think that's what I told Mark. I think at this point, doing something like that might be diminishing returns.
I think so.
And we've handed out a lot of stuff already, so I'll take that as a no from the task force. We won't do that this Saturday. We're putting together a sign announcing the dates of the next 3 sessions in front of, it will be in front of the town office. If we can figure out how to scrunch all that information in on one sign, but we're gonna try to do the best we can. Flyers, has everybody seen a copy of the flyer that we're talking about? Do you have? No, this is something different. It's basically a flyer that announces the 3 dates. And it's something that, what I'm thinking, we'll have a stack, we'd like to have a stack in the town office, in the front, in the lobby, and put them up in the libraries in town, places like Biggs, Pete's, Cook's, just so that the information is spread out there, and we can do that by this weekend. Now, signs in front of the 3 venues that we're gonna meet at. I'm not sure where that lies right now. I mean, it would be nice if we could say, you know, in front of each one of these, say, Community Hall and Cundy's, you know, meeting, March 23rd, whatever.
Yeah.
Is it possible to do that, or should who do we need to talk to make that happen?
You mean like a sandwich board?
Well, either a sandwich board or, you know, something like what we've done before with a printout with something that we can stick in the ground.
Find out, Terry, where the electronic sign is right now.
Okay,
I can ask her tomorrow.
yeah,
It belongs to Cumberland County, but they let us use it.
okay. Okay, good. So I'm thinking if we had a sign in front of, wasn't it the OBI schoolhouse, in front of Cundy's Community Center, in front of Kellogg Church, where we're gonna have the 3rd meeting, that would be another way to advertise
Yeah.
this thing.
And the sheriffs actually move them themselves,
Great,
so I'll check tomorrow.
okay, great.
Al, how about the store down in South Harpswell,
Pete's.
Harpswell Center?
Pete's, yeah.
Pete's, yeah.
Yeah, Pete, you know, what I'd like to do is have at least something, I mean, you can just paste it up on the wall, whatever. I mean, I know at Biggs they have a,
Well, we made this one, which we already sent out.
okay, so that's what we're talking about. It's just a sign that says, here's where the meeting's gonna be held.
Just 8.5 by 11, so it can go on bulletin boards.
Yeah, we could put it on a bulletin board or something. Just to have something in those locations would be good. The other thing I was gonna bring up was we need an easel-sized, big map, future land use map, that we can either go from one, we maybe only need one, but we need something that when we start at Cundy's, and we go to Orr's, Let me go to,
I'll be at all three, so
Oh, okay.
bring it with me.
Oh,
okay,
good.
outstanding, that's great. And then I also think I'd like to ask somebody to put together an article for the Anchor, for the April edition of the Anchor. It has to be in a few days, just announcing we're going to have a public hearing in April and then a vote in May. It doesn't have to be an elaborate thing, but just something to alert people that that's happening.
Do we have a time yet, Al, for the April 10th meeting
The April 10th, I believe, is going to be 6:30.
in the evening?
Yeah.
Okay, well, of course.
It's-
Okay, thank you.
It's, I mean, it's
6:30 would be better for me in the morning, but that's okay.
Yeah,
That's fine.
I understand, I mean, it's not
I'll be-
ideal, but the school, it's gonna be at the school, so, and I'll comment about that in a few minutes. But let me know if anybody wants to do an article for the Anchor. If not, I'll just jot something down, it's not gonna be a problem.
I think that's what'll happen.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, so I'll do the Anchor article. All right, let's go back to,
Al?
Yes.
Excuse me. You talked about moving that electronic sign around to the 3 locations. I've been handling the logistics at the Kellogg Church, so if that's what we're gonna do, let me know so I can give them a heads up. I think we can't just.
yeah, I mean, and the Kellogg Church thing is on a Sunday,
Yeah.
which is appropriate, but it nonetheless is a Sunday, so we need to make sure that that's possible on a Sunday. Not breaking any local laws or
They
anything.
might not be signs on Sunday, I'm not sure.
Okay.
In case the church burns down when I walk in.
What I do, my wife wouldn't even get married in my church.
There was something else that blasted through my mind here, but, okay, why don't we, at this point, let me turn it over to Judy and let her comment, and I'm sure I'm gonna think about what I was gonna say.
Okay.
But go ahead.
Okay, so we got the draft plan out, it's on the website, it's easily accessible. There's a comment card there for people to put in comments. If you guys see anything, you can either do it that way or you can just send us an email. I will say that I know the town, when they printed it, Staples, when they printed it, and other people are having problems with printing the PDF. The reason is that when you open up Adobe, a lot of people, it's set to actual size of the paper, and
for
it's
printing.
cutting things off, right? So there's settings in the printer settings, all you have to do is change it to fit from actual size. And then orientation should be auto, so that portrait or landscape, it swaps it automatically. And when Staples did it, they didn't bother to make those changes.
Yeah.
And that's why all of the stuff got printed in a weird way. But if you want to print out a whole map, any of the full page maps are all designed to be 11 by 17. So the goal of those being that they would be printed sideways and accordion folded into the plan
Right.
in the end. But if you want to see it on 8, and you don't have 11 by 17 printer, and you want to print it on 8.5 by 11, then all you have to do is make sure you hit that fit button, and it'll scrunch it down onto one sheet, and you'll see the legend.
Okay, so hopefully, when the final version comes out, that'll be resolved.
It has nothing to do with us. That's the way somebody used Adobe. Like, it's
Yeah.
a software issue, and Staples should have known better.
Okay.
But they maybe just didn't know
Okay.
that they needed to do that, but.
Okay, so we talked a little bit about attendance at each one of these upcoming meetings. The 23rd,
Well, before we go on to that, I just
Go
want to
ahead.
see, has anybody looked at it, and does anybody have any comments already?
well, this is a beautiful document. Obviously, based on what you've said, some of the pages are not terribly useful, so we're gonna have to rectify that final version. The only thing I brought up, and I've talked to Mark about, was the implementation section. Because when I looked at it, the responsibility for a lot of these things was on committees that really don't exist at this point. I mean, for example, Comprehensive Plan Implementation Committee has not been formed, it's not been approved, and so on and so forth, and yet we've put in the implementation plan, these guys are responsible for all this. Same is true with the Harpswell Housing Committee.
Right, those two.
So, I talked to Mark about, should we have maybe the planning board interspersed in some of those responsibilities, and he's come back to me, and we're gonna continue that discussion. But the bottom line is, once we sort that out, we'll have the appropriate committee or organization, and it might be that we put the responsibility on some committee that is a future committee. And that's fine, but,
That's-
yeah, but I think, you know, when I looked at it as a planning board guy, I said, well, gee, you know, that's a planning board maybe ought to deal with that. But Mark and I have gone back and forth on that.
And I started to put like lists of things, right, because almost everything, any ordinance thing will go to the planning board and the select board. But, and at some point I was like, well, I don't really think it's helpful to say, you know, some implementation committee that designs it, then it will go to planning board, then it will go to select board. Like, that is true, that will be true, but I was trying to put the committee whose responsibility it's going to be to shepherd something through. Like, that's their job. And all of those committees that have to be, you know, or all the committees that have to be consulted in order to get there will still have to be consulted. So I was not trying to take planning board out of things, but it's been my experience with comprehensive plans that creating a committee to be in charge of implementation gets a plan done, and not doing it means that it won't get done.
Yeah, and
The
that's
planning
the-
boards have a lot to do, and adding that to their list is a lot.
That's essentially what Mark said as well, in an
Yeah.
email to me. So we'll sort that out, but I just wanted to
And
make,
I'll-
yes, sir.
I feel obligated to say one other thing. I think the planning board has had several bites at this apple. You know, you and Amy and, you know, for a while Howard were here. And, you know, in the end of the process, that the planning board will be intimately involved in, like Judy just said, approving and whatnot. So I wouldn't say exclude the planning board from the middle
Right.
part, but I wouldn't, you know,
Rely on them.
give it to the planning board.
Right, okay, understood. And I think Mark sort of said the same thing in an email back to me. But, you know, sometimes people get their nose out of joint if they're, you know, not represented in the right way. So we'll make sure that that happens in the appropriate way, in the best way
Yeah,
that
since,
possible.
I'm sure there will be things that need to be
Right.
modified, so.
So
I look
we've
forward to the discussion.
We've noted a couple of, I
Article
mean, it's a
one.
beautiful document, we've noted a couple of shortfalls in the document, and we'll make sure that those are corrected before the final version goes out. And again, I just want to reiterate, the point of what we're going to do between now and the final vote is to make sure we get the word out to the community as best we can, get their inputs. If we have to tweak something, we will. Obviously, we're not going to solve everybody's problem or satisfy everybody, but do the best we can to be sensitive to what the community is telling us, because it's really their product, not ours in the final analysis. So, okay, the information meetings, we wanted to talk a little bit about the format of that.
Yep.
And I've talked a little bit to Matt and George about this. This seems like a good outline, good way
We
to,
tried to keep it short and
yep.
To the point.
That, you know, people can come to these information meetings, and all of us can follow this, you know, or, you know, we have to be sensitive to our audience. I mean, if we're talking to fishermen or the fishing community, they might be more
I still think it's probably best to follow it as closely as possible, so that, I mean, because we've tried to really hone in on the most important things,
Yeah.
and I think all audiences at this point need to know all of those things.
Okay, so make
that would
sure-
be my recommendation.
Make sure that these points are covered to the best of our ability, and then let the conversation take place from there.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
The question, what's available to people who show up at this meeting, what's available to them? I assume we're not gonna print out whole copies,
No.
hard copies.
This is probably pretty
So is
expensive.
the assumption that people are gonna download it and read it, is that the basis of information for participants?
I think what we need to have at a minimum is that large future land use map, which is probably gonna be.
I understand there'll be some visual aids, but in terms of the plan itself,
Yeah, so I think, you know, one of the reasons that we created the executive summary, and the reason that some people noticed that there was repetition between, like, describing the future land use plan and the executive summary, and then having a future land use plan chapter, is that future land use plan, which is down to a beautiful 8 pages.
Executive summary.
Executive summary, sorry. Executive summary, people could just read that, right? And that would be like this, with a little more information and some graphics. So the idea being that most people who are gonna engage with the plan will probably read the executive summary and that introduction and just that part.
that's good.
Some people who want to dig into something, if they want to understand what the goals and policies are, most people are probably going to be interested in particular ones, not everything. So they can go to the chat, and that's why we kept the goals and policies separated by chapters,
Yeah.
so they can go there. If somebody really wants to dig into the data, then part 2 is available, and they can pull up the inventories and read whichever parts of those inventories they want to read. So, and it says that at the beginning of the plan, so I think the goal would be that, most people are that interact with it would read the executive summary and would get those most important points of the plan.
If that's down to 7 pages, would it make sense to have copies of that available so people,
That we might be.
when Matt's waxing eloquent, they
Yep.
can
Okay,
follow
so-
along at least in the executive summaries.
Yeah,
So we're talking about handouts, that might be
Yeah.
something that we could make available to them.
yeah, yep.
Okay.
And I could pull that PDF out and just make that PDF. and
Okay,
send
so
it.
let's make sure that we have handouts, good point, available at these meetings, and,
Is it possible if you're gonna be there, I assume you're gonna have your laptop with a PDF on it, and I know I can speak for at least the community hall, they have similar technology, you know, where you can project it, so that way if somebody was like on page 27, you know, we could flip
Yeah,
to page
happy to-
27 and bring it up, you
Yeah,
know.
I'm happy to do that anywhere where the ability exists.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if at the,
Yeah, I can't speak to the other
Yeah.
place, I just can speak
Yeah.
to
or,
Princeton.
I don't know which places it's
OBI
available, but I'll
school.
have it, and if somebody wants to just come over and ask and me bring it up, I can do that too.
I think the OBI schoolhouse, I know, is not gonna have any.
Yeah,
large-
but I will bring my laptop so that if we need to bring it up and be able to be specific about something or show somebody something, we can do that.
Will that hard copy be with us?
I assume that the town has, there's a copy
Well,
at
I'm not sure how
the
many
town hall.
copies were made, I
Oh,
just,
not very many.
yeah, it's probably
They're
a
at all the
handful.
libraries.
bring that one.
And,
Bring that
and
one.
there's one
Yeah.
here,
I'll give
so we
it to you.
can.
You're the first on
Nice. I'll, yeah,
Yeah.
I've got one, but I'll drop it off.
Okay.
Wide open.
All the power.
Go back into 2-3 pages.
So yeah, we'll make sure that we get that PDF out tomorrow of just the executive summary.
Again, and just make sure that
People wanna get it printed
you're
like
aware that some of those maps
Oh, yeah.
are not necessarily very informative because of the way they're formatted on the
Yep.
page and stuff.
See that?
But it gives people an idea of the depth and detail of what we've gone into here, especially in part 1, for sure, so.
And I was also thinking it would be useful for us, if we need to answer a question and we want to make sure we don't make an error, that we can look it up.
Yeah, and there's a
It
file.
turns out I have not memorized everything.
We have.
I bet you have.
There's a file copy here,
Perfect.
in the town office that is complete, because I was handed that at the town meeting. And it's that version, but not quite for that finished format, but everything is there. So, okay, we talked about handouts at the meeting.
Is there anything else that people want there to be at the meeting, besides the executive summary and the large map for people to look at?
Okay. And then obviously, one of the reasons we want more people from the task force there to assist the presenter is to take notes and make sure we get feedback.
Al?
Yes, sir.
So I plan to be there to take notes and all that, but, so we're gonna have 3 of these things.
Yeah.
We're probably gonna learn something from the first one that would make us wanna, or at least tell the next crowd, like what's going on, right? Watch out for this, or we should have some of this or that. So we should probably not leave that to chance and make a plan to actually like communicate from group 1 to group 2 to group 3. I don't know how we do that, but I'm just
Well,
making.
Cundy's is the first one out of the barrel, so.
I'll be there with you.
I think that seems like.
And then
half
2
the
days
committee's
later,
gonna
it's
be there.
it's OBI, and then the day after that, it's Kellogg Church.
Can we talk a little bit,
Yeah.
can we talk a little bit about what we
You-
want to
Yeah.
make?
You know,
Yeah.
I'll just send you an email.
Sure.
That's easy enough, right?
That's
And then
right.
you can follow suit with
Yeah,
George.
absolutely. Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about what we most want to hear from, what kinds of things should the recorders be bringing back?
I think, just personal opinion, I think obviously, are we hitting the right concerns for the town? You know, we think we are because, you know, our vision statement was based on what we got from the town, but obviously, it's not a huge percentage of the town. But we want to make sure that at least what we have identified as key parts of the vision are something that people can agree with. And I think the other thing that we made a point of, and I think maybe is important, is the fact that we don't have an exact formula about how to get from where we are to where we want to be. But we've identified a number of different strategies that we can adapt or adopt in the coming years to make progress toward where we want to go. So, you know, to the extent that we can get feedback on the people think that we're going in the right direction, we have the right priorities, and what we're putting forward is reasonable. I think those are the key things. I don't know what you might add to that, but.
Yeah, I mean, I think you want, you know, to hear from people, have we covered, you know, does this represent who you believe the town is and where you want to go? That's really the key question. And then, you know, are there any particular things in the plan that people have comments about?
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, I don't think because one person says, I don't like A, means that A disappears from the plan, but we'll bring all that information back together and you guys will discuss and decide what changes you want to make. And we won't make any changes at this point. We won't be making any more changes until you guys talk about them.
So basically, concerns and reactions that ought to be considered in the next draft.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Peter.
So, I do have one thing to say about what we could have there at the meeting. So, I think it was at our last CPTF meeting, there was a member of the public who made a suggestion, and the suggestion got kind of poo-pooed, but the more I thought about it over the next couple of days, I thought it was a pretty good idea, which is like, could we have some paper and pens in a box, and if you either don't have time to get your question asked or your comment in, put it in, or if you feel like I don't want to put my name or face behind this, but I want to get this across, put it in the box and just collect
Sure,
those.
good idea.
I will bring my magic bag of public
Good idea.
It
participation.
wasn't my idea, it was whoever,
Yeah,
you know,
great.
made it.
We have note cards and pens, and so we can put them out on the table for people.
That's great.
That's great.
I think this is a really good summary. The only thing I would add under section 2,
Yep.
what it does, I would put comment what it doesn't do. And to be very clear at the beginning with people so they don't get misled by this, because this sounds very authoritative. And it says it sets it must do this and it will help it and to meet your needs and so on. It's all fine, but it doesn't encompass everything the town is going to do in the next 10 years. And there are things we have not dreamed of that may happen. And we should just be very clear at the beginning, because if people think this is a is a ironclad plan, and there's, and so on, I mean, because I have plans to talk to the select board about a municipal airport, and it's not in here yet, so, you know, I want to be free to do it, even if the plan doesn't say it's in there.
Yeah. It does not prescribe the future.
No, and it doesn't do any harm.
Right.
Yeah.
That was always,
Do no harm, right?
do no harm.
Okay, great. Okay, so that leads us to the public hearing, which is April 10th, 6:30 at the community school. And that reminds me of the thing that I forgot before. One gentleman came up to me at the town meeting and said, you know, it's too bad we weren't able to close the loop on this thing by town meeting, because you have, 500 people, I don't know how many people were there, but a full auditorium. And so, you gotta make doggone sure that you have a good turnout when this thing comes to vote in May. And then the preceding event, obviously in April, is the public hearing. So it's incumbent upon us to try to make sure that we get as many people there as possible to participate in the last parts of this thing.
Well, as far as the vote goes, there's gonna be ordinance changes, there's gonna be this, the right to fish thing.
So this is not gonna be the only thing in the agenda for the May meeting, it's gonna be.
No, it will not.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's
Yeah,
great.
you'll be seeing the right to fish, there's a couple of ordinance changes. Planning board will be seeing that next meeting, I think.
Okay.
I've been bugging Mark about it, so.
Which is gonna help, because there's gonna be a lot more interest, because of obviously
Yeah.
a variety of different subjects and topics, that's good. I don't know, you have some other things here, you wanna talk about any of these, like attendance, outlines, handouts, report back, filming? Are those just questions that you had?
Well, so we talked about this, that was
Yeah.
outline. Yeah, I wanted to make sure, I'm assuming that things are not gonna be filmed except for the April 10th, but if we want the public
No,
hearing.
no, we'll do the April 10th for sure.
But we probably wanna make sure that Margaret or whoever's gonna do that is available, so we probably want to get that checked on it. That's why I put it in there, so that we
Okay.
would arrange for it.
Are we doing the filming or HCTV doing the filming?
We would have to ask, I don't know. But we're gonna have to do, because it's at the school, we can't do it, we can't do it from here.
Right.
Margaret did it the last time when we did them at the
Yep.
school. So I
Yeah.
think we've been handling it.
We'll check with Margaret.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure that that was on people's radar to get that planned, so that it's not a surprise to somebody. I'm assuming we're not filming the March meetings
No, we're not
because
gonna-
they're,
we won't
that'd
film
be
the
too
March
difficult,
meetings.
yeah. And also, it's not really a format for that, so.
Yeah.
And then, we already talked about handouts, what handouts you wanna have, and I will bring note cards and the map.
Okay, I know this is a big document, it's tough to dig into, but please do the best you can to go through this thing, and, because, we're gonna be responsible for answering questions and so on and so forth, particularly as these meetings come forward. But I think we're at a point where we're close to where we want to be. And I just want to say personally, I want to thank you all. Being involved with something for several years is difficult, because, enthusiasm ebbs and flows and so on and so forth, but you guys have been great. And I think we're gonna come out with something that the town is gonna be proud of, and that, we can kind of hang our hat on and saying, we did a good job, and we're hoping that the town kind of moves forward in a good direction in the next 10 years. And so, personally, thank you very much. And you have any other comments or questions at this point?
No, unless people have questions for us.
We all pretty
If
well-
anybody wants to look at the Adobe print thing and want me to show you, then I have it up and I will show you.
Are we all clear on kind of where we are for the next several weeks? Okay, great.
I have to apologize. I'm leaving Sunday
Yeah, and you're going to Florida.
eventually.
Okay. Well, that makes us even more mad.
Yeah, I know, but I'm gonna be gone for a few weeks.
If you're going to
Okay, well,
Antarctica, it'll be different.
Thank you for
It
your,
was planned a while ago.
thank you for your insight and so on as we have gone through this process. Yeah, I don't have very much else to say unless anybody else wants to add a comment here before we close shop. In a record amount of time, I think this is the shortest meeting we've had.
Were we going to kind of assign or have volunteers for the specific meetings?
Well, it's not that you need, you know, I would like to make sure that at least a few people from the task force are at every meeting.
Yeah.
I know that a couple of people have said they're going to be at Cundy's. I've had a couple of people say that they'd be at Oars and Bailey Island Schoolhouse, and we can, I plan on coming to the,
Thank goodness I'm going last.
I plan on coming to.
I get schooled twice.
Kellogg Church,
Go either way.
and, you know, it's not that you can't come, if you want to come, more than welcome, but.
I think that every committee member who can make every
Every
meeting,
meeting.
all the meetings you can make, you should be there for, because
Right.
it makes a difference in how the public perceives your involvement in the plan.
Right.
So, the more people at each meeting, the better off it is. You don't have to say anything, you just have to be there and stand up when they start
I think it's our
meeting.
responsibility to be at every one.
You know,
right?
try to make it to every meeting if possible. And let's leave it at that.
I wasn't feeling guilty till right now. They're kinda looking forward to it.
You can come via Zoom.
Oh, yeah. I can-
Okay, anything else? All right, meeting's adjourned.